Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, what does the depiction of the three judges in the front of the Daily Mail today tell us about our divided nation? If you saw the description of the three senior judges as the enemy of the people and thought, yes, those men should be allowed to frustrate the referendum verdict, then you are probably on one side of this debate. If you thought it was a slur against our independent judiciary, then you're probably on the other. Whatever your perspective, within hours of the High Court verdict, the lead claimant in the case, Gina Miller, faced death threats online, and the impasse between Leavers and Remainers seems as strong as ever. So can the two sides talk to each other, or are we seeing a deepening split in society, a new culture war even? So Kunda Kamani took the leading Remain campaigner Hugo Dixon to the Leave stronghold of Wolverhampton to explore if the two sides can ever find common ground.
Oh no, we can't go. Ah, hello. We're here from the BBC. Which way are we going? You know what happened yesterday with the court?
I've heard a little bit about it.
Do you have
going against having the MPs voting on it, and I say no.
You don't think MPs should have a say
no,
on this?
the British public have voted.
But what about this idea that the British public voted for Brexit, but we don't actually know what form of Brexit it is, and therefore we have to figure it out?
Well, that's up to negotiation.
My ultimate response to anything like that is, at the end of the day, the country voted to leave. So I think everybody should say, OK, I've lost the vote if you remain. I've lost the vote, fine. Sit down together and work out the best deal for everybody to get out as soon as possible.
And who, when you say sit down with everybody, who do you think should be involved in these discussions? Do you think MPs should be involved in the discussions?
Yes, I think MPs should be involved in this, but I also have a strong belief in whichever area in the UK, say, take me Wolverhampton for example, if they voted to leave, then that MP should stand up, whether he thinks it's right or wrong, and stand up for the people of Wolverhampton.
We need to come out of the European Union. That's what the people want, and that's what should happen, regardless of the ruling by the High Court. Yeah,
but the High Court, I don't know if you're aware, what they said is they didn't say that we can't leave the European Union. All they said is that Theresa May can't decide it all by herself. She has to go through Parliament.
Yeah.
Is that unreasonable?
No, I don't think it's unreasonable.
Can I ask you what you're hoping for from Brexit? What do you want out of it? What's the
Obviously, where are you from? South?
From London, yeah.
Get round Shivebrook and then you'll know. You can't even go round. There's squatting in tents everywhere.
Do you know which countries they're from?
All over Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Eastern Europe?
Yeah.
The crime by European citizens in the UK is it's the same rate as the crime by native Brits. There's crime in all communities. As a percentage.
Right, so where's it higher, that percentage? You ought to get up to north.
Well, I
don't just live in this little palace that you all live in down south and think everything's good, because it's in. What's your background?
Well, I went to private school. So what does that disqualify me from being a citizen of Britain?
No, but it's a different way of life. These politicians, they've had a wake-up call. There's an establishment and we want to get rid of them and get normal people into government instead of same millionaires that's running the country year on year on year. It's just, I think it's a good wake call. We want Donald Trump in America to kick their horses into gear.
But he's a bloody billionaire. You're happy with the billionaires, but you don't want the millionaires.
He's not a politician.
I thought it was really good. I mean, there was a lot of actual willingness to discuss and debate. And when they realised that actually what the court was saying is that Theresa May is not a dictator, she cannot do this all on her own, she has to consult Parliament, then everybody that we spoke to changed their view. So I thought that was amazing.
And you also got a bit of a hard time about being from down south, being from a privileged background.
I don't think I got a hard time. It's an accurate observation. I'm from a privileged background, and there are divisions in our society. We've got to work really hard to bring our country together.
The View from Wolverhampton. Well, Stephen Glover is a columnist for the Daily Mail, and Stella Creasy is the Labour MP for Walthamstow, which voted to remain. Stephen Glover, first of all, are you proud of that Daily Mail front cover?
I'm not proud of many front covers. You mean the front page today?
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it. Why should I be proud of it?
Well, it's your paper.
It's a paper for which I write. I don't know anybody's proud of it. It's a perfectly reasonable front page. Why should one be proud of it?
Well, I just wonder if you're comfortable with calling the 3 senior judges in this country enemies of the people.
Well, writing front page headlines is above my pay grade. I don't write them. I think those judges, you know, they're grown-up people. They're probably tucked up in bed very happily at the moment. I don't think they feel frightened or worried about it. I mean, we're not attacking inner city youths.
So it was a
joke? It's
not
a joke, no, but you know, they've made a really decisive intervention in the political process, and they must expect some comeback, and that's what they got.
But the comeback, should the comeback include copy in the Daily Mail that calls one of them a gay fencer? What does that actually have anything to do with the decision they made yesterday?
I didn't see anything say. I saw stuff which said that he was a fencer and that he was married recently to somebody. That was just a part of his biography. The other judges had their biographies. I think that was just factual.
What do you make of it?
Well, I'm just interested, Stephen. Can you tell me what part of an Olympic sport is relevant to their competency to do the job, or what part of his private home life
his background.
Is
relevant?
relevant?
Who he is.
Because it's incredibly troubling to me to hear you say that you think it's perfectly reasonable. Look, one of the proud principles of our British democracy is the independence of our judiciary. It's the fact that actually independent judiciaries
to know where they went to school,
but they keep governments legal. They keep governments honest. They keep them to the rule of law. And when you chip away at that, as that front page does, you undermine our British democracy. You create an environment in which those very people who we rely on to be impartial, they're not politicians, they're not like me. Please judge me on my views, challenge me on my views. But the independence of our judiciary is a central tenet of a progressive, liberal and tolerant Britain.
But this also goes both ways, because in fact, within minutes, I imagine it was minutes, of that front page coming out, we had calls on the left to stop advertising the Daily Mail, to get rid of the Daily Mail, to put the Daily Mail under. You have to surely have the freedom of speech to say what you want.
And this is one of the things I'm very worried about. Look, we will have differing opinions about what the future of this country will be and what our relationship with Europe should be. But we have to be able to have a debate, have a discussion about it with freedom of speech, not with people trying to shout people down or threaten them because they disagree.
Hardly shouting, have a headline in the newspaper. I mean, this
you
is really
called them the enemies of
one headline in the newspaper.
Interesting, because then that would suggest that actually the Daily Mail doesn't really matter.
Well, it's one newspaper amongst many, and these judges would have drawn comfort from the coverage in other newspapers, of course.
Would you even take on board that kind of inflammatory language does not actually lead to healthy debate, but only increases divisions in society?
I think you're making far too much of a front-page headline in a tabloid newspaper. If you look into the Daily Mail, there's a lot of discussion. There's stuff about the backgrounds of these judges.
A sexuality of the judges. What does that matter?
Well, it may. I mean, as it is a public fact that he's married to another man, that was set down. Why were
the other judges? Well, that's quite interesting, because actually it was worth writing that he was married to another man, but it wasn't worth writing where the others were married to women.
Well, I don't know whether.
And you also have then covered whether one of the judges in the Supreme Court is a feminist and has a view on marriage. If that has any relevance to making a judgment call about whether the government is following the rule of law.
It was said that the Lord Chief Justice had been in favour of the free press. They were perfectly balanced, short biographies.
Can you see how, by focusing on these things, it's about controlling somebody by their identity? It has a very chilling effect to suggest that our judiciary... Because the impartiality of our judiciary is absolutely vital to our democracy.
Tell me who's chilled. I'd like to know who's chilled.
Well, so do you not think that identifying someone's sexuality as relevant to their competency to do a job...
Has anybody asked?
Well, we don't know, because you think he's probably tucked up in bed. Let's move on a minute, because I want to talk about Wolverhampton. Because what was said in Wolverhampton was a very key point. You know, saying it's all very well to talk about what's happening in London and so forth, and what's happening, and the average of immigration. Because actually under Labour, immigration was, you know, people were welcomed in, and London was seen as the centre practically of the world. Was that a mistake?
Listen, I represent a community that is very diverse. We have a lot of immigration. We talk about immigration a lot. Nobody suggests that it is easy to get these things right. And I think we do have to recognise these debates are happening across the country and that people have differing views. The question for me about that about all of this coverage
let's move on to talk about the elites. I mean, what people in Wolverhampton would suggest that you are part of the elite as well. I mean, that there actually is a huge division now, and it's getting bigger. And actually, having had the referendum, a lot of them want to see MPs meddling in what they thought was a very clean decision.
And I think what we have to do in that environment is not pour oil on the fire. And that's what these sort of headlines do. That's what this sort of coverage does. It makes it harder for us to move forward. I don't deny there are divisions within our country. I'm incredibly worried about them. I think we all have a responsibility to get them right.
Do you think they're greater than they were on the 24th of June?
Yes, I do, because the amount of hate crime has gone up in this country. We can disagree on an issue, but we have to be able to tell people who want to ask questions about immigration that they're not racist, just as we also have to be able to say that someone's sexuality should not be a matter of public debate.
To go on about this sexuality.
Well, let's not go on one more minute. Let's talk now about how you think that you heal divisions in society. You would accept that there are huge divisions.
There are divisions between the Remainers and the Brexiteers, and there are some Remainers who will not accept the outcome. And until they either accept the outcome or the outcome is arrived at, there will continue to be the divisions. But I mean, look, newspapers have headlines, they have articles. To imagine that this has had some terrible, devastating effect upon British society is literally crazy.
Well, I would suggest that actually what that headline suggests is that there are people within the Daily Mail who actually believe that, who write that. Presumably you do believe that people in the Daily Mail do believe that judges are enemies of the people. It wasn't just a kind of a flash in the pan thing.
That conveyed that this particular judgment is at odds with what the people voted for on the 23rd of June.
But,
that's what it said.
Yeah. No. So how does it add to this kind of climate that there needs to, that it's difficult to have a national debate, and actually the extremes and the edges become more emboldened?
There will be a natural. There is a debate going on, but as long as some Remainers, whether they be judges or MPs or other people, refuse to accept the outcome.
But the judge, whether the judges are Remain or not, it was an independent decision based on the law.
You say that. You say that.
Sorry,
I mean, the idea being that judges.
That judgment was.
No, the idea that judges are somehow utterly independent and haven't got political views is completely naive.
But actually,
in America, it's accepted.
Do you think if the judges
in the Supreme Court there are liberal judges and conservative judges?
Do you think if the judges had gone the other way, you would have said that's fine? They must be leavers, that's okay.
I personally think it would be better if the judges hadn't been involved at all. Of course I do. And I think they'd find it quite difficult to find 3 Eurosceptic judges, by the way, because I think there are very few of them. I think judges are 95% probably Europhile.
Do you? We're just about to finish. We're about to go into a very fraught period.
It is written into UK law by the UK Parliament that our judiciary is independent. It's a 2005 Act of Parliament.
They are human beings who see things through a particular prism.
This proves the point, doesn't
naive to imagine.
You don't want to listen to anybody else's argument on this, and yet that is absolutely what this country has to be able to do.
Thank you very much.
Enemies of the people is not the way that we have British democracy.
Stephen Glover, Stella Creasy, thank you very much indeed.
I've been